In 1999, the Sega Dreamcast was released in the US. It was Sega's last console ever made. It followed the unsuccessful Sega Saturn, and this was their last chance to make a great console. It was received very warmly, and at first, it looked as if it would be successful, but it was not, and here's the true reason why. They will say it was because the PlayStation 2 stole its customers, but no, it was because the console was messing with people's minds, but mostly because of one game in particular: schizophrenia. Don't bother looking for videos or screens of this game or any info. It has all been erased. But if you dig hard enough, you might find a scrap of info. All of my info came from one of the people who played the game and lived. He told me the game starts without telling you a thing. You just wake up in an old, run-down, abandoned insane asylum. You are strapped to a bed, and you must struggle to break free. He said he remembered the game had amazing graphics, even by today's standards. He said they would hold up. Then, you walk to the door and open it. It screeches very loudly. It was extremely dark in the hallway outside the door. One of the most creepy things about the game, he said, was there was no music, just the sound of wind, falling paint and dirt, your footsteps and breathing, and disturbing voices that never stopped whispering, talking, laughing, and crying. Then you would have to go search for a fuse box to get the lights back on. There were rotting bodies everywhere, filled with maggots. He said he swore some of them moved. Every now and then, he said you would lose control of the character. He would grab his head and scream in pain, and a very creepy picture would flash on the screen. This scared and disturbed him, he said. He swore he could see shadows move through the game. The screen would glitch and twitch. It could not shake the feeling of being watched. Then, something happened that changed his life forever. He told me that finally he reached the point where he said out loud to himself,
"This game is too goddamn scary. I can't play this anymore."
Then stood to turn off the game. At this moment, he says he was violently slapped in the face and paused in the chair and heard a demonic voice say,
"No, play."
He screamed and ripped the console off the table onto the floor. He was one of the lucky ones. In the years 2000 to 2007, over 200 men, women, and children were found either mutilating themselves or dead after playing this game. There were also 50 cases of people becoming violent, suicidal, and withdrawn just from playing the Dreamcast. So with sales dropping, they used this as an excuse to pull the console out of production. What followed was one of the biggest cover-ups in history to erase all evidence of the awful things that happened. An anonymous source who used to work for Sega fed me this info. So now you know what really happened. Below are two stories of what happened to two kids who played schizophrenia.
Well, I was playing the game. I had just gotten the lights to come on, but when the game started freaking out, the screen was fuzzing up, twitching around the character, and the game fell to his knees and grabbed his ears and began to scream. Then I saw him. I call him the Watcher. He slowly walked up to the king character, grabbed him by the neck and stared into his eyes, then he vanished. The voices in the game that never stopped whispering, laughing, and crying went from inaudible to just able to make out, and all he said was,
"Suffer, suffer, 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 suffer."
With that, I got off the game. That night, I dreamed that I was in the asylum. The Watcher found me. He strapped me to a bed. Then he stared into my eyes. I'm sorry. It's just, I can still see those demonic eyes of his. Anyways, after he stared into my eyes, I heard,
"Suffer, suffer."
inside my head. Then 4 extremely skinny people, I guess. They were patients of the asylum at one time. Ran up and began biting and ripping at my fingers and toes. I could hear and feel the skin rip open and my bones crunching in their teeth. The pain was unbelievable. I have never screamed so loud in my life. Then I woke up. A feeling of relief came to me. It left just as quickly, but the pain hadn't stopped. I screamed even louder this time because I knew what was going on. My mom and dad came running into the room. They asked me what was wrong. All I could manage to do was scream, and tears coming down my cheeks. My mom pulled the blankets away, and as soon as she did, she began screaming. My dad's eyes got wide with horror and anger, and his skin went white with fear. My arms and legs were strapped down with belts, and all my fingers and toes were ripped off.
The beginning of the story starts out almost identical, all the way up to when the watcher grabs the game character and stares into his eyes. But then instead of hearing the voices saying,
"Suffer.
they were saying,
Die."
We found his body in his room, strapped to his bed with belts, and a very large portion of the body was eaten alive. The cause of death was that of blood loss, which means he was likely eaten alive.